Hey everyone, Carl with Littleroot Lessons, bringing you a deep dive into the world of Pokemon VGC. Today we are featuring Thundurus Incarnate specifically. We had a lot of people ask about Thundurus Incarnate, and it just so happened that I was already working on it. So it all worked out. Make sure that if you like Thundurus Incarnate and you liked the last video and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications for when new videos go live. Leave a comment down below who you want to see me cover next. I have a very short list of Pokemon that I'm currently running out of, and I'd like to add some more Pokemon to it before I get through Series 8, especially some of these restricted mons and some of these more niche picks. I think it'd be very cool to cover some of them. So getting right down into it, Thundurus Incarnate is essentially the opposite of Icnineroar here. Whereas Icnineroar is bulky and kind of slow and does a lot of stally, annoying things, Thundurus is very fast and hits like a truck and is essentially the counter to Intimidate because it has the ability Defiant. So Defiant means that if you were to have a stat dropped, your attack goes up by 2. So in the case of Intimidate, when you go down 1, you essentially end up at +1. So it's a very good counter, and especially with Thundurus, because Thundurus has a fighting coverage move in Superpower and a Hammer Arm, I think, which means you just have a way to beat Incineroar a lot of the times, and you're already getting boosts out of it. Outside of physical offensive Thundurus, there are some support styles running around with both Defiant and or Prankster. It has an okay deep status move pool, things like Eerie Impulse and Thunder Wave and Scary Face, Bulk Up, Taunt is a big one, Rain Dance. So there's a lot that Thundurus can do, and because Thundurus is fast, you can run a physical offensive set that happens to have Taunt on it, so you can Prankster Taunt things. Or you can have a Defiant set that has a fast Rain Dance on it, but also carries Wild Charge and Fly because you want to be able to deal damage. So Thundurus is very versatile in some of those facets. Looking at its history, though, it's not been around for very long. In the Sword and Shield meta specifically, it was introduced via the Crown Tundra DLC, which is about 4 or 5 months ago now. And as soon as the Series 7 started, Thundurus was very popular. It shot up the ladder. It shot up to about, if I remember correctly, it was close to a 25% usage stats for Series 7, which at the time was a lot because it's just like the next highest ones, there's a bunch of 20s and there's a bunch of 30s and things like that. It was a very good counter to Tapu Fini, very good counter to Incineroar, had a decent matchup against Landorus. It was kind of just like a trade back and forth kind of thing. But because of its very fast, very physically offensive power, it became a very good threat in a Dynamax format because it Dynamaxes and has access to Max Airstream, and Max Knuckle, and Max Lightning, and Max Darkness now, and Max Steel Spike if you want that. Also has access to Max Flutterby via U-Turn if you wanted to do something weird with that. So it's a very good Dynamax threat, and it's a very good counter to Intimidate, which is also very popular right now. So it's just, Thundurus became very popular very fast. Currently is 26% on 26% of all Series 8 teams, which in the Series 8 meta, that's third best. That's really good because Series 8 has a very diverse pool of Pokemon that anyone can play with. Going over some common movesets and like what the current metagames and how they're playing out right now. Most Thundurus, when I say most, it's apparently 90% or above have Fly, Wild Charge, or Superpower on them. Like those big 3 are going to be on Thundurus every time. After that is where we get into some of the gray, murky stuff for Thundurus, which we'll talk about when we get to common items and whatnot. There's Dark coverage in Lash Out and Foul Play and in Crunch and Brutal Swing. There's Steel coverage in Iron Tail. There's Bug coverage in U-Turn. It has access to things like Taunt, Rain Dance, Electro Web, Eerie Impulse, Thunder Wave, Scary Face, stuff like that. I only covered like the first 10 moves, 12 moves here because I could have filled a whole slide with just moves that Thundurus is running right now. As for items, this is where it starts to get really like boiled down to what is a good Thundurus. Assault Vest is 70% almost. 70% usage on just Assault Vest. That means that 24% protect is usually on a support or a Life Orb Thundurus. And a lot of these dark moves you see, the Foul Play, the Lash Out, the Crunch, if you add those all together, it's ends up being about 56%. More than that. Ends up being 49% usage. So it's because it's 38 plus 11. Yeah, ends up being 49% usage, which that explains why Assault Vest is 70%, but you see these dark moves all at 19 and 11. Life Orb comes in at 15% as the second most used item. This is probably more of a relic at this point from Series 7 because Life Orb is being used on other Pokemon usually now, which we'll get to that when we get into building with Thundurus and why that is. Safety Goggles is at 8%. This is usually just to beat up Amoonguss and Venusaur and things like that. And then Lumberry here at 3% is, again, an Amoonguss counter. You see less Lumberry now, though, because Calyrex Shadow and Ice are a thing, so Unnerve is very popular as an ability. So a lot of these berries you see on Thundurus are going to be very much less useful than they are right now, than they were in previous formats. This is a new slide. I made this last minute because someone asked about adding this to the show, and they thought it'd be a good idea, and I agreed with them. Common partners here would be a good idea, just like so you have an idea what you're looking for. Is Thundurus good for you? Like, do you need a 6th Pokemon and you have half these Pokemon on the screen right now on your team? Thundurus is probably going to be a very good fit. Thundurus pairs well with any kind of physical attackers that care about Intimidate, things like Groudon, Zacian, Urshifu Dark, Urshifu Water. There's a laundry list of physical attackers that care. So having Thundurus on your team to pair with these guys is really good. And it pairs really well because Thundurus is immune to ground. Thundurus hits water types really hard. Thundurus hits rock type, Thundurus hits steel type, Thundurus hits psychic type, things like that can give these Pokemon problems. It also hits opposing flying types very well because it has access to Wild Charge or Max Lightning. So seeing these Pokemon on the screen here, that covers a lot of their weaknesses. So they actually pair really well with the Thundurus. Also being paired with it are things like Calyrex Shadow, which I'm not sure why exactly. Whimsicott, again, I'm not sure why. I'm assuming it's like a relic from Series 7, and same with Clefairy. Clefairy was a very common pairing in the what they call the Nut Core. You would play Clefairy, Kartana, Thundurus, Urshifu, things like that. So that's where Clefairy probably comes from, as just a relic to that. Let's see here, movesets. So these two on screen are probably the most common movesets for Thundurus. You're going to see this almost every game. I would say the first one is actually almost every game. The second one there with the Life Orb is a little less uncommon now. But even down to the EV spreads here, where that Thundurus there will survive a lot of hits and be able to deal out a lot of damage after getting a boost. Whereas that Life Orb set focused super hard on being fast and KOs with Dynamax, and this AV set is a little bit more flexible. You don't have to Dynamax it. Having moves like Foul Play and Fly means you can kind of avoid damage or deal really big damage by proccing a policy, and then you have a fast Foul Play that just blows up a Metagross or a Solgaleo, or trying to think of other Psychic or Ghost Pokemon that... Calyrex Shadow, that's another big one. And things like that. The next sets here are more supporting sets, and they're very, very rare. You do not see these very often. I built both of these myself. The first one is a just generic support set with Focus Sash. You could honestly take all the HP out of it and put all that stat into a special attack so your Volt Switch does more. But you could also just leave an HP and be fine. Having access to things like Thunder Wave, Scary Face, Electro Web, being able to lower Pokemon speed is very important, seeing you're already fast at 179 after 252 plus nature. So you can deal with a lot, being able to get things to -1 or -2, and then you outspeed again, and then you just take over the game from there. The second set is a lot more common of a Thundurus support set because it usually pairs well with a Rain Metagross or Rain Solgaleo or something like that. Having access to Rain Dance, Brutal Swing, Scary Face Taunt means you just get to deal with a lot of the format. You have enough bulk and defense where you just don't die to Rock Slide or any kind of Rock Fall very easily. And you pair well with that because the water Pokemon on that team deal with the Rock type Pokemon. So having the support Thundurus there with safety goggles means you don't have to worry about anything too terribly much. Plus, lets you get around people going Amoonguss, Trick Room Setter, Rage Powder, so you can still taunt the Trick Room Setter. So building with Thundurus, it's like Thundurus is very good against Intimidate spam. We've said this, I think, like 4 or 5 times now. It also just has a ton of coverage types. It has access to Electric, Dark, Flying, Fighting, Steel, Bug. Special gets access to Poison and it gets access to Grass, but loses Flying. So if you just wanted to do something with Volt Absorb Thundurus Therian, you could do that. Or you can do something with Prankster Thundurus and have like Grass Knot on it to beat Groudon. You can do that. It's also a good way to proc Weakness Policy because it has moves like Brutal Swing, U-Turn, and Volt Switch, where you get to swap Thundurus out into something else that can help your Weakness Policy Dynamax target a little bit better after procking a policy and things like that. Beating Thundurus, though, is a much taller ask than building around it. Thundurus is usually physically offensive and is usually very fast. However, in a blind format where you don't know what your opponent's playing, it could be the support Thundurus, and if you go all in on that Thundurus and it just Volt Switches out, and then their opposite Pokemon Dynamaxes and sweeps your team, they got you. They tricked you. You did exactly what they wanted you to do. Whereas if you don't respect it and just ignore it and think it's going to just be support, and it turns around and Max Airstreams and Max Knuckles you like 3 times, you're gonna feel real bad about that one too. Intimidate needs to be avoided when you see a Thundurus. Try to play around it. A lot of people are now it's like lead games. It's like you put your Intimidate in the back. Well, I'm also gonna put my Thundurus in the back. And if I think you're gonna switch into Intimidate, I'll just switch into Thundurus and things like that. Thundurus is also only weak to Rock and Ice, so you need a lot. It's hard to hit it super effectively, but if you have a neutral hit that hits physical on the physical side, you can probably deal with it fairly quickly. As for support Thundurus, it's just you gotta either be faster with Taunt or have a Prankster with Taunt that's faster. Dark types are really good. Psychic Terrain's really good. Even though Thundurus isn't grounded, so you can fake it out, but it can't do anything to you if Psychic Terrain's up and you're grounded. So that's kind of one of the flaws of having a Prankster Thundurus or Prankster Tornadus even for that matter. So wrapping up here, Thundurus is a very offensive Pokemon, very hard to deal with, and is a very good Dynamax threat. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. If you see this thing and it Dynamaxes, you need to have a plan of attack to beat it. Being able to focus against strong physical hits on it, just being able to outspeed it naturally and being able to chip it away at it is very, very good. If it's a support set, you need to outspeed and taunt it. It's the easiest you can do. Once you know it's Prankster Thundurus, you can usually play around it and just apply pressure via something else. But if your team is looking for any kind of strong physical presence and you want to be able to play around Intimidate, Thundurus is the best slot you can probably fill it with. It requires very little to build around, requires almost no real need at like a hard item. It's not locked into AV, even though AV is the most popular. Like we saw earlier, you can play Safety Goggles on it, you can play Lumberry on it, you can play Life Orb if Life Orb's available, you can slap Expert Belt on it if you really want to. Thundurus' item is not locked in stone, even though it says 70% play AV. Do not feel pressured to play AV Thundurus every time. But that being said, I want to thank you all for hanging out and watching today's episode with me. Make sure you come and hang out with us on Twitch. I'm doing Pokemon Snap speedruns on Twitch now at twitch.tv/musical. You can find my co-host Carter. He's doing Pokemon Y Nuzlocke right now. Twitch.tv/Mr. Missouri 25. You can hang out with us on Twitter or in the Discord as well. Link to the Discord's down below. Twitter handles are all on screen. Again, make sure to comment down below who you want to see me cover next time. Again, I'm running low on Pokemon already. I've gotten 4 or 5 done here in the past week, just preempting all of this. So I'd like to have more Pokemon to work on for the future. And I wanted to thank everyone again for giving us a ton of support for that first episode. That was one of the best episodes we've had on best series starts we've had for any kind of thing on YouTube. So again, thanks to everyone who hung out and watched that and left all the feedback for it. And I'm excited for more feedback and to keep working on these in the future. So that being said, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at in the world, and we will see you all next Wednesday. Bye, guys.